What happens when America's most crucial Asian ally decides that dependence on Washington has become more dangerous than independence from it? Japan's potential withdrawal from the US-Japan Security Treaty would represent the most seismic shift in Pacific power dynamics since 1945, ending 8 decades of American strategic dominance and fundamentally altering the global balance of power. This isn't diplomatic speculation or academic theorizing. This is the logical endpoint of American strategic overreach meeting Japanese national interest calculations that no longer favor subordination to declining hegemonic power. I've spent decades analyzing alliance dynamics, studying how great powers lose their satellites, and examining the conditions that drive even the most loyal partners toward strategic independence. But I have never witnessed circumstances that make such a dramatic realignment so strategically rational for a major power that has benefited enormously from American protection. Japan's potential break with America wouldn't just reshape Asian geopolitics. It would trigger a cascade of alliance defections that could unravel the entire architecture of American global dominance within a single decade. When your most important ally concludes that your security guarantees have become more liability than asset, every other alliance relationship becomes negotiable. The strategic mathematics driving Japanese independence calculations have fundamentally shifted in ways that make continued alliance with America economically irrational and militarily counterproductive. China has become Japan's largest trading partner, representing 23% of Japanese trade, compared to 18% with the United States. Japanese economic recovery depends increasingly on Chinese consumption, Chinese supply chains, and Chinese investment. Simultaneously, American security guarantees have become less credible as Chinese military capabilities improve and American military resources become overstretched across global commitments. Japanese strategists recognize that America cannot guarantee Japanese security against Chinese aggression without risking nuclear escalation that could devastate both Japanese cities and the American homeland. This creates an impossible strategic equation. Japan depends economically on China while depending militarily on America in a relationship where American protection requires Japanese participation in potential conflicts that could destroy Japanese prosperity. Strategic independence offers escape from this trap by enabling Japan to pursue defensive sufficiency without choosing sides in great power competition. The historical precedent reveals how even the strongest alliance relationships become unsustainable when the costs exceed the benefits for junior partners. Britain abandoned its American alliance after the Revolutionary War when continued dependence became economically and politically untenable. France ended its British alliance when strategic interests diverged beyond reconciliation. The Soviet Union lost its Eastern European satellites when the costs of empire exceeded the benefits of control. Japan's alliance with America has provided security and prosperity for 8 decades, but those same benefits now require accepting risks that could eliminate both security and prosperity through involvement in great power conflicts that serve American rather than Japanese interests. When alliance protection becomes the primary source of alliance vulnerability, rational actors seek alternative arrangements. The economic dependency transformation represents the most fundamental change in Japanese strategic circumstances. Since the Meiji Restoration, China's economic integration with Japan has reached levels that make economic separation practically impossible and economically devastating. Japanese manufacturers depend on Chinese production networks, Japanese consumers rely on Chinese products, Japanese financial institutions have extensive Chinese exposure. This economic integration occurred gradually and peacefully, creating interdependence that serves both Chinese and Japanese interests, while making conflict between them economically suicidal. Unlike the American alliance, which requires Japanese preparation for potential conflict with China, the Chinese economic relationship offers mutual benefits that grow stronger over time rather than creating escalating risks. Japanese business leaders increasingly view American demands for economic decoupling from China as threats to Japanese prosperity rather than contributions to Japanese security. Forcing Japan to choose between American alliance and Chinese commerce creates impossible dilemmas that strategic independence could resolve by enabling Japan to maintain beneficial relationships with both powers without subordinating Japanese interests to either. The military capability evolution has created conditions where Japanese strategic independence becomes not just possible, but potentially superior to American dependence for Japanese security requirements. Japan's self-defense forces have evolved into sophisticated military organizations capable of defending Japanese territory without American support while avoiding the offensive capabilities that threaten other nations. Japanese defense technology has reached levels that enable indigenous production of advanced weapons systems, including stealth aircraft, precision missiles, and electronic warfare platforms. Strategic independence would accelerate this technological development by removing American restrictions on Japanese weapons exports and military cooperation with other nations. The defensive sufficiency doctrine offers Japan genuine security through capabilities designed to make invasion prohibitively costly without threatening other nations' security interests. This approach provides more credible deterrence than American nuclear guarantees that require escalation scenarios potentially culminating in nuclear exchange between superpowers. Japan's geographical position offers natural defensive advantages that technological development can enhance dramatically. Island defense against amphibious assault requires different capabilities than power projection across vast distances. Japan can develop optimal defensive systems without maintaining expensive power projection capabilities required for global alliance obligations. The alliance burden costs have escalated beyond sustainable levels while providing diminishing security benefits. Japanese host nation support for American forces costs approximately $7 billion annually, while requiring Japan to accommodate 54,000 American personnel and their dependents across multiple installations that create political tensions and operational constraints. These costs support American global power projection rather than Japanese defense requirements. Specifically, American forces based in Japan serve American strategic objectives throughout Asia rather than focusing exclusively on Japanese security needs. Strategic independence would enable Japan to redirect these resources toward capabilities designed specifically for Japanese defensive requirements. The political sovereignty constraints imposed by American alliance requirements have created domestic tensions that undermine Japanese democracy and limit Japanese strategic options. American demands for Japanese participation in potentially dangerous military operations create constitutional crises and political divisions that weaken Japanese governance. Okinawa-based controversies demonstrate how American strategic requirements conflict with Japanese democratic processes and local community interests. These conflicts create political vulnerabilities that foreign adversaries can exploit while limiting Japanese government flexibility in addressing legitimate constituent concerns. Strategic independence would eliminate these sovereignty constraints while enabling Japan to develop security policies based exclusively on Japanese interests, rather than balancing Japanese needs against American demands for alliance solidarity. The regional dynamics transformation has created opportunities for Japanese strategic independence that didn't exist during previous decades of undisputed American dominance. South Korea's increasing independence from American strategic direction provides precedent for major American allies pursuing autonomous security policies. ASEAN nations have successfully maintained strategic autonomy while benefiting from relationships with multiple great powers simultaneously. Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam demonstrate how middle powers can prosper through balanced relationships rather than exclusive alignments with single hegemonic powers. China's rise has created alternative partnership opportunities that enable Japanese strategic independence without isolation or vulnerability. Chinese leaders have consistently indicated willingness to respect Japanese sovereignty and territorial integrity in exchange for Japanese neutrality and great power competition. The economic integration benefits provide Chinese incentives to maintain peaceful relationships with an independent Japan, while American alliance obligations create Chinese incentives to view Japan as a strategic threat requiring containment or neutralization. The technological sovereignty implications reveal how strategic independence could accelerate Japanese innovation and economic competitiveness. American technology transfer restrictions limit Japanese access to advanced systems while requiring Japanese sharing of indigenous innovations with American defense contractors. Strategic independence would enable Japan to develop fully autonomous technological capabilities while pursuing unrestricted cooperation with nations offering beneficial technology exchanges. This could accelerate Japanese leadership in critical technologies, including robotics, artificial intelligence, and advanced materials. Japanese corporations currently face American sanctions risks when pursuing technological cooperation with Chinese companies. Despite potential benefits for Japanese competitiveness and innovation, strategic independence would eliminate these restrictions while enabling Japanese companies to pursue optimal business strategies based on market rather than political considerations. The nuclear dimension presents complex questions about Japanese security requirements and strategic options. American nuclear guarantees have provided security assurance, but they have also created dependencies that limit Japanese strategic autonomy and involve Japan in potential nuclear conflicts between superpowers. Strategic independence could involve Japanese nuclear weapons development designed specifically for deterring threats to Japanese territory, rather than supporting American power projection globally. Japanese technological capabilities enable rapid nuclear weapons development if political decisions favor this option. Alternatively, Japan could pursue strategic independence without nuclear weapons development by relying on defensive sufficiency doctrines that make territorial conquest prohibitively expensive without threatening other nations or triggering regional arms races. The alliance cascade effects would transform Asian security architecture fundamentally if Japan chooses strategic independence. South Korea would face impossible choices between maintaining American alliance without Japanese support or pursuing independent accommodation with China and North Korea. Australia's strategic planning assumes Japanese partnership in containing Chinese expansion. Japanese neutrality would force Australian reconsideration of forward defense strategies and American alliance commitments that become unsustainable without Japanese participation. Southeast Asian nations would interpret Japanese independence as confirmation that American hegemony is ending and regional powers must adapt to multipolar realities rather than relying on American protection that may prove unreliable when tested. The economic bloc formation possibilities emerge when Japan pursues strategic independence, combined with Chinese economic integration and regional partnership development. East Asian economic integration could accelerate dramatically without American political interference and sanctions threats. Regional comprehensive economic partnership expansion could create Asian economic arrangements that rival or exceed Western economic blocs in size, technological sophistication, and growth potential. Japanese participation in such arrangements would provide economic benefits while reducing dependence on Western markets. The currency implications include potential reduced demand for dollar-denominated transactions as Asian nations develop alternative payment systems and trading relationships. Japanese participation in yuan-denominated trade could accelerate global movement away from dollar dominance. The American strategic response to Japanese independence would likely involve attempts to maintain influence through economic pressure, military threats, and alliance partnership offers designed to prevent other allies from following Japanese precedent. However, American strategic resources are insufficient to provide compelling alternatives to strategic independence for allies facing similar calculations about declining American credibility and increasing American demands for participation in dangerous conflicts serving American rather than Allied interests. The domino effect potential becomes enormous if Japanese independence succeeds in providing superior security and prosperity outcomes compared to continued American alliance obligations. Other American allies would face similar calculations about costs and benefits of continued dependence versus strategic autonomy. The global implications extend beyond Asian regional dynamics to encompass fundamental questions about unipolarity, sustainability, and multipolarity emergence. Japanese independence would represent confirmation that even the closest American allies calculate that American hegemony has become more burden than benefit. European allies would observe Japanese success or failure with strategic independence as indication of whether similar policies could benefit European interests. NATO solidarity depends partially on perception that American alliance provides irreplaceable benefits that cannot be obtained through alternative arrangements. The technological development acceleration that could result from Japanese independence might provide other nations with alternatives to American technology dependence. Japanese innovations in defensive technologies, civilian applications, and dual-use systems could reduce global reliance on American technological leadership. The institutional transformation would encompass existing international organizations designed around American leadership assumptions. Japanese independence could accelerate development of alternative institutions based on multipolar rather than unipolar principles. UN Security Council reform becomes more likely when major powers like Japan pursue independent foreign policies rather than coordinating with American positions. Regional organizations could gain importance relative to global institutions dominated by American influence. The economic warfare implications include potential American sanctions against Japanese independence policies designed to punish defection and deter other allies from similar decisions. However, Japanese economic relationships with China and other Asian nations could provide sufficient alternatives to American markets. Sanctions effectiveness depends on target nation isolation, which becomes impossible when major economies like China provide alternative relationships. Japanese independence supported by Chinese economic integration could demonstrate sanctions limitations against nations with viable alternatives to American-dominated systems. The military technology implications encompass Japanese potential for developing advanced weapons systems without American restrictions or oversight. Strategic independence could enable Japanese arms exports and military cooperation that enhance both Japanese security and economic interests. Japanese defense industrial development could accelerate through partnerships with European, Israeli, and other advanced technology nations without requiring American approval for technology transfers or export licensing. The strategic culture transformation represents perhaps the most fundamental change accompanying Japanese independence. Post-war Japanese strategic culture developed around American alliance assumptions and constitutional restrictions that strategic independence could modify significantly. Independent Japan might develop strategic thinking focused on Japanese rather than American interests, while maintaining constitutional principles adapted to strategic autonomy rather than alliance dependence. This could produce innovative approaches to security that other middle powers could emulate. The regional stability questions become critical as American alliance system fragmentation could create power vacuums or competition that increases rather than decreases conflict risks. However, historical precedent suggests that multipolar balances often provide more stability than unipolar dominance systems. European balance of power systems, despite occasional conflicts, provided centuries of innovative governance, economic development, and cultural achievement. Asian multipolarity could produce similar benefits while reducing the risks associated with declining hegemon attempts to maintain impossible dominance. The economic efficiency gains from reduced military spending and alliance obligations could enable Japanese resource allocation toward infrastructure, education, technology development, and social programs that enhance Japanese competitiveness and quality of life. Strategic independence doesn't require increased military spending if defensive sufficiency doctrines prove adequate for Japanese security requirements. Resources currently supporting American global power projection could support Japanese national development priorities instead. The diplomatic freedom that accompanies strategic independence would enable Japan to pursue relationships based exclusively on Japanese interests rather than alliance obligations. This could improve relationships with nations currently viewing Japan as American proxy rather than independent actor. Japanese soft power could increase significantly when other nations perceive Japan as genuinely independent actor rather than American satellite. Cultural, economic, and technological influence often depends on perceptions of autonomy and authenticity that alliance dependence undermines. the conclusion becomes inescapable. Japanese strategic independence represents rational response to changing power relationships that make continued American alliance more costly than beneficial for Japanese interests. When alliance protection becomes alliance vulnerability, even grateful partners must prioritize survival over sentiment. The strategic mathematics are unforgiving. America cannot provide credible security guarantees against Chinese power, while simultaneously demanding Japanese participation in conflicts that could destroy Japanese prosperity and security. Strategic independence offers escape from impossible dilemmas through defensive sufficiency that preserves Japanese interests without requiring impossible choices. It would confirm that the era of American hegemony has ended and the multipolar world has begun. When your most loyal ally concludes that independence serves their interests better than dependence, every assumption about alliance durability and American indispensability requires fundamental reconsideration. The age of American dominance in Asia ends not through military defeat, but through ally recognition that continued subordination has become strategically irrational. Japan's choice for strategic independence would represent the moment when mathematics overcame sentiment and national interest triumphed over alliance loyalty. History moves slowly until it moves suddenly. Japanese strategic independence could trigger the cascade that transforms American hegemony from unipolar reality into historical memory within a single decade. The foundation of American global power rests on alliance relationships that rational calculation increasingly calls into question. When the costs exceed the benefits, even the strongest partnerships become unsustainable. Japan's potential choice for strategic independence reflects this eternal truth applied to contemporary circumstances that no amount of nostalgia or wishful thinking can alter. The arithmetic of alliance has shifted decisively against American interests, and allies are beginning to calculate accordingly.